The final chapter of The Bunchgrass Edge of the World by Annie Proulx. From where we left off, Dad wants to see you, said Juanita. It was beef and biscuits. Adeline took a pickle from the cut glass dish. She sidled into her parents' bedroom. She was one of those who could not bear sick people, who did not know where to look except away from the bloodshot eyes and swollen face. Look, he said, it's first Friday of the month tomorrow. I got Armendinger coming out at 8 o'clock. If I ain't better, he coughed until he retched. You are going to deal with him. Take him out of there. He can look them over, see what we got, make an offer. Armendinger, the cattle buyer, was a dark complexioned man with sagging eyes. A black mustache was a dark jawline, like twin divers. He wore black shirts and a black hat, gave off an air of implacable decision and control. He had no sense of humor, and every rancher cursed him behind his back. Dad, I am scared to death of that man. He will get the best of me. He will make us a low offer, and I will get rattled and say yes. Why not Ma? Nobody gets on her bad side. Because you know the animals and she don't. If Tyler was here, but he ain't. You're my little cowgirl. You don't have to say nothing. Just take him around. Hear his offer, and we'll tell him we'll get back to him. He knew that Armendinger did business on the spot. There was no getting back to him. I get better of this. I'm going to buy a plane I've been looking at. It's the only way to work this big a ranch. A truck ain't no good, windows and all. I could bring him in here, Dad. Nobody outside of my family sees me laying flat. God damn it. He coughed. Ain't that how it goes? First your money, and then your clothes. She had the poorest kind of night, and in the morning rose groggy and in a mood. The snow had quit, and a warm Chinook blew. Already the plains were bare, the shrinking drifts lingering in cuts and folds of the land. They were still out of coffee. Upstairs, Aladdin wheezed and panted. You don't look good, said Juanita. By 8, the cattle dealer had not arrived. Adeline ate 2 oatmeal cookies, another slice of ham, drank a glass of milk. It was past 9 when the dealer's black truck pulled in. Armendinger's black hat bent down as he reached for papers. There were 3 hound dogs in the back. He got out with the clipboard in his hand, already punching figures on a handheld calculator. Adeline went outside. It was not the cattle dealer, but his son, Flyby Armendinger, big-nostriled, heavy-set, a cleft in his stubbly chin, as quiet as 3 in the morning. Mr. Towhee around? He asked, looking at his boots. I'm showing you the stock, she said. He got the flu or some kind of thing. We thought you'd come at 8. We thought you was going to be your father. I missed a couple turns. Dad's over in Hoyt. He fished in his shirt pocket, drew out newspaper clippings, showed her an ad. Armendinger and Son, livestock dealers. I've been working with Dad almost 9 years. Guess I got an idea of what I'm doing by now. I didn't mean you didn't, she said. Glad it's you. Your dad's mustache scares me. She pictured him driving the red roads to the ranch. Roads like a heavy red marker traced over the map, cutting the circle of the horizon. Scare the hell out of me, too, when I was a little kid. He looked at the porch, the house, the wedding wheat, the blue door shed. Well, she said, here we go. That wheat needs cutting, he said. She drove, and he stared at the far horizon visible beneath the bellies of cows. They bounced over the pasture, the dust in the truck cab shaken loose and suspended in a fine, sparkling haze as though an emanation from their private thoughts that might coalesce into an audible statement. He opened the gates. Adeline thanked him, pointed out the good qualities of the cattle, the trim, heavily muscled bodies on straight legs, the ribeye bulge on each side of the backbone, their large size. He murmured at a coarse-fronted cow with a steery look to her, pointed out some small and sickle-hocked steers with flat loins. He counted, made notes, and added figures, offered a fair price. "You are a knowledgeable girl," he said, "and a damn good-looking one, though upholstered. Care for a beer?" Adeline spent the morning tipping back beer bottles with Flyby, who described the lonely life of a cattle dealer's son, illustrating his sad sentences with long, flat gestures of his hand. It was noon when he left. She gave the figures to Aladdin from the bedroom doorway, hanging back, dazed and fiery. Bursting with tea, he nodded, said all right. It was all right. He did not need a computer to know the margin to a penny. It was all right. And wasn't that a sad relief? He couldn't say as much for himself. That night, Old Red woke from his shallow sleep to a stiff, whistling risp he dreaded to hear. His heart beat. He rose and felt his way to the pantry window. The dirty moonlight fizzed through shredded clouds, glanced off a swinging scythe blade. Though it was not death come for him this time, but a man in a dark hat, cutting the wedding wheat in hissing swaths, stopping at the end of every row to swig from a bottle. He saw his granddaughter, Adeline, mouth cracked wide, her 100 teeth glinting like a mica bed, leaning against the door frame of the blue door shed. She hurled a piece of oily metal into the sky where it twisted and fell, stopped for another, and sent it flying. Old Red watched, summed it up. "I drove teams, I cowboyed, worked since I was a kid, run sheep and run cows, still present, fork end down, ready as a dog with 2 dicks. I ain't finished my circle yet." Tyler and Shan were far away, hoping for good luck. But here was Adeline and her haymaker. He wouldn't waste his dear breath, laughing. There was a wedding in September and a tremendous picnic under the Almendinger cattle sale canopy, red and white stripes that cast a rose flush. Trestle tables in the side yard, pork barbecue, a baron of beef, pit roasted, spitted lamb, prairie oysters, sweet corn, giant shrimp in Tyler's ketchup sauce, oven rolls, a keg of sour pickles, melons, ripe Oregon peaches made into deep dish pies, and a 3-tier wedding cake with pale blue frosting topped by a tiny plastic bull and cow. The day was hot and clear, and the red wall trembled on the horizon. Out beyond the fence, the stripped frame of the 40-30 lay where Aladdin had dragged it, on its side in the sagebrush. Juanita wept, not for her daughter, but for the cut wheat. Tyler inspected the ranch, looking it over with a displeased eye. Everything was smaller and shabbier. Why had he wanted this? He had a cell phone and sat on his horse talking to someone far away. Juanita told Shan she intended to come out to Las Vegas and visit one of these days. "Not if I got something to say about it," said Aladdin. The guests dragged the folding chairs back and forth, and when Adeline smoothed the rayon satin of her dress over her knees, she felt the grit, saw the glinting dust. A spot of barbecue sauce marked the bosom. At last, she changed into new aquamarine pants, suit, and drove away, with Flyby Almendinger on a 4-day honeymoon among the motels of Nebraska. Where wheat once grew, a row of dog houses stood. There were 2 trucks in the driveway. Old Red in his pantry wished for deafness when the bed springs sang above. Otherwise, all was the same. Aladdin applied for a bank loan for another plane. I said if the Lord spared me, I'd get it. He was dreaming of a 1948 Aeronica sedan, a loose, big cabined thing with feminine curves and a split crankcase to be replaced with an undamaged one from Donald's Cowboy Junkyard. She's so roomy, if I had to, I could put a couple calves in her. Bales of hay, cake, just about everything. Even Adeline. Ha ha. The bank approved the loan. And on a quiet and gray morning, the wind lying low, Aladdin started his truck, got halfway down the drive, backed up, parked, and came into the kitchen. Old Red dunked his toast in black coffee. I'm going to fly that plane home, he said. I will land in the Triangle pasture. Appreciate it if you was all out there watching. You too, Bubba, he said to his son-in-law. I got to go look at Trev's cows this morning. Flyby Almendinger did not like living under the thumb of Aladdin, Toohey. In the night, he complained to Adeline that Aladdin was worse than his mustachioed father. My block don't fit his tackle, he whispered. It sure fits mine, she whispered back. Call Trev up, say you'll come a little later. He won't give a shit. I want everybody out there waving. Cause for celebration. Get a plane on this damn place again. Gonna teach Adeline how to fly it. It was mid-morning when they heard the drone of the engine. Ma! Shouted Adeline into the house. He's coming. Juanita came outside and stood with Adeline and Flyby, staring at the horizon. Old Red hobbled onto the porch. The wind had come up and it was gusty and chill, the distant line of cliff marking a red, dull break in the serene plains. Juanita ran back into the house for her jacket. The plane flew over and headed toward the red wall, turned, and came again in their direction, very much lower. It passed over them 20 feet off the ground. Aladdin's head was barely visible in the smoke from the homegrown that clouded the cabin. The plane soared up, shaking in the wind. It rose in a steep climb, leveled out, and sailed away. When it was only a distant speck, it turned and came toward the ranch again, curving and sliding, coming low. At a certain angle, it resembled a billboard in the sky. He is acting up, said Juanita. She watched the plane roar and low like a crop duster. I think he's going to land, said Flyby, or take a soil sample, or stake out a homestead. He is acting up. I know him. You get down here, Juanita shouted at the plane. As though obeying her, it touched the ground, sending up a puff of dust, bounced back into the air, and made 2 more prodigious hops before the left wheel caught the iron frame of the abandoned tractor, and the plane fell on its face, crumpled into a mash of cloth, metal, and rancher. There was an explosion like a mighty backfire, but no flame. A ball of dust rose. Flyby dragged Aladdin to safe ground. His father-in-law's head lolled at an unusual angle. He is dead, I think. Yes, I think he is dead. Yes, he is dead. His neck is broke. Juanita shrieked. Look what you done, said Adeline to her. You killed him. Me, that's what cutting the wheat's done. He done it to himself, called old Red from the porch. It was clear to him the way things had to go. They'd plant Aladdin. Adeline and her scythe man would run the ranch. Juanita would pack her suitcase and steer for the slot machines. The minute she was out of sight, he intended to move out of the pantry and back upstairs. The main thing in life was staying power. That was it. Stand around long enough, you'd get to sit down.